Hello, Dave.
Hey, haven't seen you for ages.
You know, it's
Well,
been a while, hasn't it? It's been four
well, it was
hours.
4 hours ago or something like that. But hey, have we got anybody in the chat box? Not yet. We've got people in the room. Lots of people in the room.
Wow, it's already full. No, it's not full. There's
Not
lots of people
full,
already there.
but lots of people coming. That's great.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Who's first in the chat?
Oh, Michaela, you
Michaela.
are first. And like that's out of hundreds of people. You are first. You should wear that
Amazing.
badge with pride. And Lithuania. Yes, great. Two people from Lithuania.
Ah, yeah, straight off the bat. And
Ooh, lots of
Indonesia.
people suddenly. Oh, we've got Georgia, we've got Lithuania, Malta. Do you know, Will, are you the same as me? I mean, in your slide, I've been to 28 countries giving talks. It's actually now 31. But every
I mean,
time I
more than
say a
that now.
country, it's either a country that I've been to before and that I love, like Slovakia, Peru, Poland, Slovenia. I've been to all those places. And then you see countries that you've never been to before, and you
Yeah,
think, I
yeah.
need to go. I
There's
have to
just so
go.
many. It's just, I mean, it's such a cliche, but there is just so much stuff. There's so much
Yeah.
sort of magic and culture and amazing things to see and do around the world, isn't there? It's just there's always somewhere else.
And also, I remember like in the COVID, those terrible COVID years, but I've given sessions in countries that I'd never been to. So Lithuania is one where I've given a talk at the national conference, but
Okay.
online. But I need to go to Lithuania one day. Lots of people from Lithuania and
Yeah, yeah, we
Poland, of
have got
course.
one.
And like I said this morning, I was in Poland in the summer giving talks near Warsaw or in Warsaw, just outside Warsaw.
Hmm.
Hello, Krakow,
Yeah,
Slovakia.
we've got a big sort of following, I think, in Poland. We've got a whole Macmillan Polska team. They are just the best group of
We've
people.
got a very big
So
Macmillan Polska team, yeah. Peru as well, yeah. I was in Peru once giving talks in Lima. Yeah, beautiful. Bratislava. Oh, I really want to go to Bratislava again. I have to go to Bratislava again.
I'd love to see Saudi Arabia as well. Someone's just come in from
Saudi
Saudi
Arabia,
Arabia.
not been to, as you
Just
know.
such a unique place. It looks so different to anywhere I've
Yeah,
ever been in my life. Saudi Arabia.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was in Jordan, as I told you before, in Jordan in the summer, and you've been in Jordan as well.
Oh, I
Petra,
can't recommend it.
beautiful,
What a place, huh?
amazing.
Just out of this world. What a place.
There's such a
Okay.
big world, and it's all with us today here.
I know, we're all here together. Isn't it nice? Sort of a global cuddle. Okay.
Yes, brilliant. No,
All
it
right, I'm
is
going to share
lovely.
my screen. We made the mistake. I'm just going to embarrass us, Dave. We made the mistake of over chatting. We had the morning session, me and Dave this morning. We chatted for about 25 minutes or something silly. So we've given each other a little slap on the wrist saying we can't do that
Yep.
again. We can't chat 20
Stop
minutes.
chatting.
Stop chatting. I could do it all day, Dave. I could do it all
I
day.
know what we do. We do
We
sometimes. So
do, don't we? Hold on a second. I've taken a fast forwarded. Here we go. Engaging Teenagers Day. Here we go. So don't forget, I'm going to be doing a poll actually before we start. I mustn't forget. We've got a little poll, a question we'd like to ask. So Engaging Teenagers Day. Welcome everybody. I hope. Can you see my screen? Okay. No,
yes,
you
you're
can
not
see my screen.
sharing yet. No. I
Can
can
you
see
see that
that.
okay
Will.
now?
Yep, I can see it.
Great. Okay, so welcome to the Engaging Teenagers Day. We are hoping to engage you as well throughout the entire day. We've got three fantastic talks here, all about engagement, motivation, but also really focusing on inclusion and thinking about those individual people in the teenage classroom, making sure they're all progressing, learning in a motivated and excited and interested way. We've got three amazing talks, and they're actually really different talks purely by the fact that they're done by three different extraordinary people, and they're all sort of given their own different spices and colour to their different talks, which I love. So we're starting off with the wonderful Dave Spencer talking about engaging students and ensuring that all students in your class learn as much as possible. Then followed by the wonderful Soa Sol, again, still looking at including all students in the class, but zeroing in on project work and how to make sure every student has got their own learning path when you're doing a project in class with them. And then finally, Maria Luisa is doing a wonderful talk. So starting off talking about findings from a study done by Macmillan Education into what students are into, what they like about English language, what they like about their school, what they don't like, etc., which will form kind of a backdrop for a conversation between Maria Luisa, Usoa and Dave at the end of the session as well. So we've got loads coming up today. We're aiming to be finished in about 2 hours from now. Just so if you wanted to set your timer or plan your day a bit, we're looking for about 2 hours today. So UK time, that would be 5 o'clock, aiming to finish. Might be a bit later than that, but we're aiming for that. Before you ask, I'm sure you have. I bet you have. I bet someone's asked about this, which is, of course, completely understandable. Someone's usually asking about certificate, and I completely get it. But just so you all know, your certificate, along with a virtual goodie bag, will come to your email within the next week. And you don't need to do anything. You don't need to ask where it is or where it's going to be, obviously, before that point. We're sending them out within a week. And it usually is, to be fair, it's usually 5, 6 or 7 days after the webinar. So don't expect it tomorrow or Thursday or something. Anyway, so that'll have a certificate of attendance and a virtual goodie bag. If you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn, there will be a link at the end of the session in the comments field, which you can click, and you'll be able to get your certificate that way as well. So if you're watching on social media, you're still going to be able to get that. You're very welcome. I heard all those things. You're very welcome. So before I hand over to Dave, really quickly I want to let you know that this is one of kind of a 3-part, I don't know what you'd call it, 3-part set of talks that we're doing. So we started off a few weeks ago. We had a day dedicated to young learners. Today, of course, is dedicated to teenagers. We've got Dave Spencer in the room. Who else is it going to be about? And then in a couple of weeks' time, on the 1st of December, we've got a day dedicated to educating adults. So we're looking at 3 completely different areas, actually. We're looking at educating adults at university, so academic English and the transition from teenagehood to academia/adulthood, learning English-wise. Then we've got Bahargun talking about CPD at a school and how you can orchestrate a CPD program within a group of teachers relatively autonomously while also looking after their own individual needs. So that's going to be a really super interesting session, really pertinent to teachers who want to work on their CPD within a group of teachers. And then we've got Kate Protsenko coming back to Advancing Learning again, talking about skills that will, resilient skills, I suppose, skills that will stay, that we believe now are kind of lifelong skills that you can guarantee we're going to need for life. Anyway, so that's the Advancing Educating Adults Day. Then on the 12th of December, I'm sure you've already seen 3 extraordinary speakers. David Crystal, his son Ben Crystal, and Chie Soan Chong are here to say sayonara to 2023 with a really cool set of talks on kind of history of English, the history of pedagogy, and bringing it into the modern classroom. You can register for all of that now. It's on macmillanenglish.com, so do go and take a look. There are going to be a couple of polls popping up. I'll do one now. And we just want to ask you some questions to get sort of things moving, get your brain working towards the sort of areas that we're talking about today. And why not start one now? Dario, can you pop that up on the screen now? Let's do the first one now. Here's the question number 1, just to kick things off. How challenging is it for you to ensure all of your students are progressing? And you've got extremely challenging all the way down to easy peasy. What have we got? I know you can't see it, but I'm going to just start sort of commentating on it. So the 4 out of 5, the very challenging, I'd say, is sort of the predominant choice at the moment. No one has said easy peasy.
Not so far. There could always be somebody.
There could always be someone, but why would they be here, Dave? They wouldn't be.
That's a good question, actually. That is just to see us, Will, just to share some time with us.
Just to see you, Dave. We all know they're all here to see Dave. And also Anne Maria. Okay, I'm going to end the poll so we don't run over. These are the results. We didn't have a chance for everyone to answer. Nowhere near everyone to answer. But yeah, okay. It's very challenging to quite challenging. Not many people are finding it really difficult. Nobody's finding it very easy, or very few people not finding it very challenging. Most people are kind of just beyond that kind of, there's a struggle. It looks like there's a bit of a struggle going on with making sure.
Yeah, those results are definitely what I would be expecting. Yeah.
Okay, Dave, you are.
Who am I?
Who are you?
I'm a national treasure.
You're trying to take control, I know, but I'm just going to take 30 seconds to talk about you. We must do it. You are the author of Gateway series, the wonderful Gateway series. you're presented in 31 countries as a teacher trainer, and you are a teacher. Of all those three, quick fire answer, Dave. You're a teacher, you're an author, you're a teacher trainer. Which one, if you could pick one to do for the remainder of your career, which one would you go for?
That's a trick question. It's impossible to choose. No, I really do like the variety. I was saying this morning, it's great being a teacher, but of course, it's really rewarding being a writer. Very challenging too. Well, they're all challenging jobs, and I literally do. I think it's that mixture of the three that is what actually really inspires me, I suppose. One thing inspires the other, if you know what I
Well,
mean.
you dodged the question very nicely. Great question. Good answer. Love it. All right. Have a lovely session, Dave. See you all later.
Cool. Thank you so much. I'm just going to pop my presentation on the screen, which I'm imagining that you can all see. You could just tell me a quick yes or no if you can see that, but I'm pretty sure it's a yes. Adriana said yes. Perfect. Okay, great. Literally, just like in 1 second, of course, I'm the author of Gateway. I'm a teacher still in the classroom, as Will has said. And I've done a lot of these international webinars before. And I can honestly tell you, and Usoa will tell you the same, and Maria Luisa the same, it's such an honor, seriously, honestly, just to sort of see people from around the world. There are hundreds of you. You're all busy, you found the time to join us together. And just to say that, you know, we really, really always appreciate it. After many international webinars, I never cease to be amazed that everybody's here with us. So thank you very much for joining us today. The title of the session, Involving and Engaging All of Our Students, and the subtitle is Mission Impossible. By the way, thank you, Anastasia, who is one of the people who's always with me on the Gateway Facebook page. Engaging all of our students, Mission Impossible. Well, why is it difficult? A lot of you said that it was challenging, quite challenging, or extremely challenging. And I agree with you. I would choose one of those three answers every day when I'm in the classroom. Sometimes quite, sometimes very, sometimes extremely. Why is it challenging? Well, maybe it's challenging because we usually teach groups of students ranging from anything. I suppose it could range from very small private classes, but usually we're talking about 15 to 30, 35, 40, maybe even more. And even if we just have, for example, 6, 7 students, there are lots of differences between each person in that class. People who have been to my webinars, you know that I love lots of comments in the chat box. Could you please help me now and just very quickly, can you brainstorm what differences exist between the students in your class? Ivona has already said different levels of English, and that's like an obvious place to start, right? Mixed abilities, says Adriana. Ages, okay, right. So depending on what kind of teaching situation, family background I've seen, motivation, character, personality, the way they learn, which is interesting, lack of interest, which is, you know, that is the real world, that there's sometimes lack of interest. Access to the internet is an interesting comment there. Attitude. Internet connection, that's interesting. It's come up a few times, yeah. Type of learning. Right. We're not going to spend a long time talking about this because you kind of already know, obviously, the differences that exist. You're putting some ideas that maybe are not in my slide, but I think they coincide very, very closely. There are things that we already obviously know. Motivation, how do they feel about English? One thing that maybe has not appeared in the chat box is what do their parents want? You know, we're not talking about adults, we're talking about teenagers. So sometimes the students' parents have different aspirations, different motivation, different goals. But yeah, all of these things that you're saying, cultural background, energy, enthusiasm, definitely. So somebody could be great at English, as it were, but not really be very active in the classroom. So these ideas that you're saying, I think they coincide very much with the ideas on my slide here. If you want the perfect solution, if you want to make it really easy to teach larger groups of teenage students, I have the solution here, okay? This is me with one of my classes from a few years ago. The perfect solution is that instead of one teacher, we've got two, we've got three, we've got four, and we've got at least five teachers. If you can multiply yourself as a teacher, then we have the perfect solution, right? Because the real problem, I think, is a simple problem. It's a question of mathematics. There is one teacher usually, and there are many students. And by many, I mean, as soon as we've got to 5, 6, 7, they are already outnumbering you. And so really, when we say that it's challenging, I think the reason that it's challenging is that simple first question. There is one teacher and several numerous students. And being totally honest, that question is not going to go away. We can't make that suddenly change. And so I think that step one in this question is, what do we need to do to deal with this? Well, step one for me is loving the problem. What do I mean? I mean that it's simply a question of you've got your class in front of you. If you imagined a class where all of your students were the same, where they all had exactly the same personality, where they had the same interests, where they had the same strengths, personally, I think that I would get slightly bored of teaching. I have been teaching for a long time. I've been teaching 36, 37 years. And I think the reason why I love teaching, I've realized now, is that I like the, not just the challenge, but this question of lots of different people in our classroom. They are all unique. This was a class from several years ago. We took this photograph for a teacher's book for Gateway. But I remember all of these students. I remember them because they're all slightly different. Some of them were funnier, some of them were more serious, some of them were like very stressed out. They're all different, and that is what makes each class unique. I've just seen, that's amazing. I think it's Tweet, maybe. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced your name, but yeah, unique. That is exactly what I was going to say. Each class is unique because each student is unique too. And it's not just a problem, it's actually a great thing. Because, as I say, the opposite would be pretty sad, teaching a group of totally uniform human beings. So, kind of in a way, I've started sort of being negative, and then I'm saying that really it's actually a really positive, and again, I'm going to say inverted commas, it's a very great problem to have, and it's a human problem to have because we're all different. So, how do we go about maximizing the participation of all of these people in our classes? Um, how do we keep everybody, as many people as we can, how do we keep them participating and interested? Renata, you're back again, second session today. Thank you. Maximizing all students' participation. The key, I think, for teaching in general is this relationship with you and the students. That means finding out about the individuals in your class. There are lots of day one activities, ice-breaking activities, getting to know you activities. At the end of this session, I will show you my Facebook page where there are lots of ideas that over the years I've shared with you, where we can help students to get to know one another, and also for you to get to know them. And that's what we have to do, I think. If we want to involve everybody, we need to get to know them. And then a great teacher, I think, is somebody who has got that ability to adapt what they're doing, adapt their lessons, adapt the book to the different people in your class and the different moods. Some people, at the start of the day, you can find the way that the students are reacting is they're excited, they're overexcited, they're not excited enough, and we kind of adapt our teaching to the moods of those students. I actually like the emoticons in this slide. This is kind of when you look at your class, you know, we've got the student who's like angry today, the one who's like quiet because they feel lacking in confidence, the ones who are feeling very shy, the ones who are like feeling confused. And what we're doing each day in our classes is trying to adapt to those moods. And then that's, for me, is like step number one, feeling the atmosphere in that classroom. Now, our students are all different for the reasons that we've said. One of the most practical things that I can think of when I think about engaging all of our students is this idea of being ready for different speeds of working. Being ready for students who finish activities quickly. By the way, when we talk about finishing quickly, it's always a good idea for you as a teacher to check that they've done it quickly, but also well, because just working quickly is not a great thing. So some students are finishing very quickly and they've done it very well. They're in control of the situation. For example, a reading text. Some will finish their activity immediately and they've done it fine, and others are only starting to read paragraph 1. And that is a fact of life, I think, of the teenage school classroom. And so what we need to do is to be prepared for that. We know it's going to happen, so let's be ready for different speeds of working. We often have this comment that all of us as teachers say, can we all stop? It doesn't matter if you haven't finished. And that expression there, it doesn't matter if you haven't finished. I do say it a lot, but as soon as I say it, I kind of think that's the wrong thing to say, because it does matter if students have finished or if they haven't finished. If they're doing a reading exercise and some have not started, or they're only on paragraph 1, we need to give them time to finish, because in a large class, people will work at different speeds. We need to have something ready for those fast finishers. This is an example from Gateway to the World, but it could be from, you could use any book, and you can use the idea that I'm going to give you now. We need to have this activity ready for them. In Gateway to the World, we've got this arrow at the end of many pages in the unit, at the end of the vocabulary pages, reading pages, where we send them to the back of the book where they're going to get an extra task that keeps them occupied. As I always say, the problem with teenage students is if they finish early and they have nothing to do, they will get bored and they will probably also disturb other students. Now, what we need to do is give them something to occupy them. This is vocabulary about school subjects. And maybe, for example, in exercise 4, that text, some are finished, they don't know what to do. We're going to send them to page 136. And if you look at a page 136 at the first activity, we've got a lovely vocabulary exercise, which is great for any moment when you're revising vocabulary. It says, well, I'm going to make this clearer by putting this on the board. The A to Z of school or university subjects. So imagine the situation. We're doing this vocabulary exercise. Some have finished. They don't know what to do. We are going to give them this extra exercise. They do this. They're enjoying doing it, I hope. And meanwhile, the other students are finishing the activity that everybody had to do. So the A to Z of school university subjects. We've got A for architecture, B for business studies, C for chemistry. Could anybody in the chat box tell me D? What school or university subject can you think of with D? Design, nice. Design, technology, drama, drawing, lots of them. Okay, drama is great. And then we can go to E. Let's move on to E. Come and help me with E. Ethics is nice. Electronics, perfect. Yes, engineering. Great. This activity, it's a beautiful vocabulary revision activity for any moment when whenever you're starting a new group of vocabulary, it works really well. But I want to make it clear again. What I'm suggesting is using this activity to keep the fast finishers busy while the rest of the class are finishing doing those. And I think, Michaela, you're sort of saying, why do they have to do more? Hopefully, for example, with an activity like this, is they're actually finding it quite challenging. And also, in some ways, it's actually quite enjoyable, I think. So, yeah, it maybe depends on what task you give them. You might have a worksheet prepared to give them. If you're doing a reader in class, you might want to get them to go through their reading book. And you can. One thing that I would say about activities for fast finishes is that I would suggest that you let everybody do this activity later. The slower students could even do this for homework, and you could correct it the day after. So you're giving them something that then you will go back and correct, and also giving all of the students the possibility to actually do the activity. So whatever you give them to do, whether it's some vocabulary, whether it's a game, whether it's a language game, whether it's a piece of writing, some reading, we're giving them something to keep them occupied. And so we're helping with this idea of different speeds of learning. Now, if we then go a little bit further, then we can go with this idea of helping the students who are maybe finding, in this case, grammar a little bit challenging, a little bit more difficult. Now, I'm sure that many of you know the flipped classroom videos. Also, if you're using any edition of Gateway, you'll know about the flipped classroom videos that we have there. And there are many on YouTube that you can find. But I think that one of the great things about these instructional grammar videos is that you can use them in lots of different ways to make sure that each student is working at their own speed on the things that they need to work on, in this case, grammar. So there are lots of different ways that you can use these videos, and I think they're all going to be constructive. For example, the first way that we've got is students watching them for homework. So whether it's before your grammar lesson or after your grammar lesson, they can simply watch them, look at them, and they can stop them as many times as they need to feel that they have understood the grammar points that you're explaining. One very practical way to use them is that when we teach secondary students, often students are away because they might be ill, maybe for a day, maybe a few days, maybe for a week. With these videos, you can't do the grammar lesson for each student who misses your class, but you can use them to help those students who've missed one or two classes, and they can watch them again and again. Use number 3 is maybe the most useful in terms of mixed abilities. Some students might not have understood your grammar explanation. Maybe they kind of think they understood it, but they're not sure. In that case, then you can give them the option then of watching the video again at home so that they can start to understand, maybe, as we say, at their own speed. We can obviously also use them for revision, and that can be before any test. And we can use them, which I think is really useful, and maybe people don't use them in this way, but they can use them for the grammar homework helper. Julio Camacho, I've noticed your question. I think when you get a link to Gateway to the World, it's one of the components there, and you'll be able to see, I think, by looking at the information that we send you, you'll be able to get a taster of those flipped classroom videos. But for example, you're teaching the first conditional. Some of the students have understood it, of course, immediately. Some think they understand, and then they're doing their homework, but they need a little bit of like a backup. They need a little bit more support. Then remind them that they can watch this grammar video, and it's going to help to consolidate their knowledge of this grammar point. They can watch it again, and as they're doing their homework, it's almost like they've got like a private teacher at home who's like re-explaining that grammar. And you can actually, I suppose, encourage them to look at YouTube to kind of find different grammar videos. There are lots of them around. So basically, we're saying that you're doing the best that you can in your lessons to engage and involve everybody and to keep everybody at the same level and the same pace in your class. But this is simply a way of using technology in this sense to actually then watch this video and to be able to get the assistance that they need when they need it. And that brings me to the next point, which the whole question of online resources. Again, I started teaching a long time ago when we had when we didn't have the internet, and now we've got like some amazing online resources that we can use with our students. I think you'll find that Macmillan courses are very strong in this sense of having, we've got this thing called the On the Go app, we've got student apps, we've got teacher resources. And the point that I wanted to make here about online resources is that they are available for the students and for the teacher to either use in the classroom, and that's a good way of maybe students working on different things that they need to work on at their own speed. And we can also use them, the students can use them at home. And I do find students who say to me, like, Dave, I've just done all of the vocabulary exercises on the Student Resource Centre for this vocabulary that we studied last week. It's very clear, obviously, as a teacher, some students will make the most of these resources and some will hardly touch them. That is, again, is a question, that always is going to happen. So I'm not suggesting that all of your students are going to be using these resources all the time, but having them at your fingertips, I think, makes a big difference. So we've talked about technology, how it can help you and the students. One simple thing that I think is really important in terms of engaging everybody is the whole question of classroom dynamics. And I said from the beginning, the problem with larger classes is there is one teacher and many students. If you think one of the resources that we can use in our classroom to improve this situation is making or enabling the students to help one another. There's one teacher, but there are lots of students. Imagine if the students start to help to do things. Somebody I noticed in the chat box said that a way of getting around fast finishes is getting some students to help other students. I agree, that's a great thing to do. And so what I strongly believe is that in our classes, we need to work on collaboration, we need to work on teamwork, and we need to work on empathy. And right, choose group work and choose one leader. Yeah, that's a nice idea, Matt Ines. This idea then of getting the students to help one another to build this positive atmosphere. And you can maybe, when you're doing some work, you can help a group of students, but there are other students who you cannot help at the same time. So let's encourage the students to help one another. These are all different examples that appear in different moments of Gateway to the World. You'll notice that we've got collaboration, we've got empathy, we've got listening actively to others. One point that I wanted to make about this is that this is not something to do once, for example, at the beginning of the year, to talk to your students about collaboration, pair work, teamwork. It's something to do regularly. And that's why in Gateway to the World, at many different moments of the course, we keep on reminding the students that they should work well with others. This seems obvious to us as adults, but I think when you're a teenager, teenagers maybe tend to be more in their own world. And here we're trying to encourage students to think about others. If you look at the collaboration box at the bottom of your screen, it says when you work in a team, it's okay to disagree with others, but it's always better to be polite and constructive. And we're giving them useful expressions to use, functional language, to be able to do that in the classroom. So what I'm trying to suggest here is that the more that students work together, the more that they help one another, the more they are helping you, of course, too, as a teacher. And again, I'm not suggesting that students will automatically do this and they will automatically be very positive towards one another. But I think that our job is as much as possible to keep on encouraging them to do that. By the way, just so that you know, if you haven't had time to read everything, you will at a later date get a PDF of this presentation where you can look at everything in more detail. Okay, so Macmillan will make that possible so that you can look again. Two other very important concepts that I want to mention briefly that I think are essential to this idea of helping each and every student. The first one is variety. I think this is something that's very obvious, but just because it's obvious doesn't make it less important. We need in our classes, we said at the beginning of this session, each student has different strengths, different interests, different personalities. To make sure that everybody is engaged and involved, I think what we need to do is to have variety in our classes. We need variety of interaction. Some students work better individually. Some students work better in groups, some in pairs. So let's make sure when we finish our lesson plan, let's have a look at that, at those different interactions within our lesson plan. Do we include a little bit of everything? Do we have different types of tasks? Some students prefer a more mechanical task, and some students really thrive on creative, personalized tasks. Different texts will appeal to different people. If it's all about music, some students will get bored. If it's all about science, other students will get bored. We need to have that variety. Some students are very good at listening, not so good at grammar. We all need to do a bit of everything so that we get better at everything, but we need that variety. And in terms of intensity, some lessons might demand more concentration. Some parts of our lesson might demand more concentration, but then we need to maybe have a slower pace at other moments so that nobody gets lost. The other key area I think that is so important is the element of choice. Some things in my class are not negotiable. My students are going to have to do some things because I think they're useful. Other things I think are negotiable. Sometimes when I'm doing activities in my class, I actually ask them. I will say, would you prefer to do this individually or in pairs? Would you prefer to do this individually or as a whole group? I'm giving them some element of choice. Do you want to do this written or spoken? Okay. Shall we do this today or shall we do this tomorrow? So I'm not giving them enormous choices that are out of my hands. I can't ask them, would you prefer to do exams or not do exams? Because we don't have that choice. But there are small elements which simply give the students the realization that they have some empowerment, that they have some elements of choice. Sorry, I was laughing because Gabriela, that's such a nice comment that you've put in the chat box. Thank you very much. I would have liked to have been your teacher too. Okay, so choice. We've got some elements of choice, and I think that this is important. One thing that is important is that the choice that you're giving them is a real choice. Don't pretend to give them an element of choice and then say, oh, actually, you can't do that. Okay, so it has to be something that you are willing and able to give them the choice. They can be very small things, but I think they're very powerful. And the last thing that I'm going to say before we have a very quick Q&A session, motivation is obviously essential in terms of teaching teens, essential. The way that I deal with this is that I do always have some vocabulary games, grammar games up my sleeve for the moments when the students are looking as if they're not with me, as if I've lost them, at the beginning of the lesson to make them happy to be learning English, and at the end of the lesson to make them leave the lesson in a good mood, feeling positive about English. A game that we all know. So this is a game that I recommend as the beginning of the class, warmer, at the end of the class, or at any moment when you feel you're losing your students. We all know this game, Taboo, right? So we've got Taboo, where we have the key word, and there are 5 words, for example, that you cannot use in your definition. And so, Magdalena, this is an activity that I'm going to share with you now. Instead of doing Taboo in this way, you can do it another way, where we don't tell them what the key word is, and we give them the 5 words that they cannot use in their definition, and they have to tell you what the word is. Can you tell me in the chat box, what is my word? I'm sure somebody's going to get it very quickly. What is the word that is the target? Map is correct. Clara, I saw that you got it straight away. Patricia, Dua, Maria, yes, it's map, okay? Because treasure is one of the words that is already there. So this is one way that you can play. If you've got some taboo cards, or you find some taboo cards, you can give them the words that they're not allowed to use, and they guess the keyword. And another great way to use taboo backwards is that you tell them what the word is that they're going to define, but you don't tell them the 5 words that they cannot use. Can you guess in the chat box, what are the 5 best words for teacher? I don't think you could use teach anyway, because I think that's part of the word. Instructor would be good. Classroom would be good. School, education, learner. Okay, lots of brilliant words. And in fact, in the card that I had for teacher, the 5 words that you could not use were school, classroom, students, and then the 2 words that I think are key are help and learn. And obviously, that is the key of what we're doing today. We're trying to help all of our students to learn. And so those are always going to be key words that we can use to define what a teacher does. Your second mother, Eva. Yeah, that's a good point too. Excellent. If you want to contact me for any information about any clarification, you can always find me, and I reply personally on the Facebook page Teach with Dave. Anything that was not clear, just ask me at that website. And yeah, we've got a couple of minutes, right, Will, just to do a quick Q&A if there are any questions that you want to ask. And if not, you can ask them at that website, at the Facebook page, yeah, of Teach with Dave, if I don't have time to answer now.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Dave. Cheers. That was absolutely brilliant, as always. Very practical. You're clearly still in the classroom. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Will.
So there was a question earlier on, while people are still thinking, if they've got any more questions, which was about, so you were talking about fast finishers, slow finishers a bit earlier, and you would send them to a page in Gateway to the World, for example. You would give them another activity, an extension activity of some kind. Yeah. And someone had a really good point, actually. So that kind of then, at that point, kind of splits the class into 2 different groups then, in terms of the way that you've got to spread yourself out. You've got to give feedback then, potentially, to that extension activity, whilst also thinking about the original, and it kind of splits things out a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 2 things. One is the activity and one is the feedback. So yes, there's a question, when and how do we do feedback? And I mentioned also things like, giving an extra worksheet to the fast finishers. Personally, what I believe is that if you give the students something to do, that is aim number 1 at that moment, because we're keeping them all busy, okay? The question of feedback is a good question. You could also argue that some students are still getting extra practice because they're doing that activity and the other students don't get the possibility to do that activity. So what I would suggest is that you don't even maybe do any feedback at that moment for that activity, and you ask the slower students to do that activity, for example, for homework, to have a look at it for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, however much time they want to spend. And then the next day, I would do that feedback. The other thing is, of course, some students are still busy doing the core activity, some are doing the faster finisher one. And you as a teacher, you do have the chance to go around the class and to at least like to be motivating them to say like, yeah, this is great, carry on, you're doing well, that's a good word. So, it's like, but it is giving you, and more importantly, the slower students time. I think that's the key, is you have to give those slower students a little bit more time to finish what they're doing, because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
otherwise they're really missing out. So the question of doing feedback and does everybody do everything? Maybe yes, maybe that's a good idea. That activity at the end of the book, all of the students do it in the end,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then,
but
so
in their own
then,
time.
for sure, and that also gives it a possibility for you to do feedback on forum rather than having to go to individual students, which would take you as a teacher a lot more time.
Exactly. Well, you can't do that. Yeah, you can't do it. If you've got a large class, you can't do that. Yeah.
Okay, quite a few questions coming in now. Any tips for unruly students?
I mean, yeah, somebody did say this morning as well, what do you do? And I didn't have time to answer. What do you do with a student who does not want to learn English? Okay.
Yeah, that's
I
came
mean,
up also. Someone's also worded it here.
this is
How do
this
you
is
how do you get how do you engage a student who are basically forced to be there? Their parents
yeah,
tell
I
them they've
mean,
got to go. Got to go.
I mean, and of course, I mean, I don't teach in a language school. I teach in a school, and some students don't want to be doing English. They
Mm.
have no choice. If you're going to a language academy, I imagine it's the parents who've taken the decision. I kind of think there's two different answers if it's a private lesson or if it's a school class. If it's a school class, I mean, you kind of need to find out what is it about English that they don't want to do. You might well find that they don't want to do any subject. And we're talking about a serious problem there that, and there are many students, or there are several students who are like that, who just don't want to learn. But, that is, I think that being a teacher, there's a moment when you have to accept that it's something that is slightly out of your power. I can't suddenly, even with the best games in the world, I can't suddenly change a student's attitude to English and to life. But my suggestion would be to find out what is going on with this student. Is it English that's the problem? Is it every subject? Is it school? What is the question? I mean, if it's a private language school and you've got this student, I think that we need to speak to parents about, what's going on and what is the attitude and what is happening, because of course you're kind of wasting time in a way, if the student really doesn't want to be there. And obviously, at the end of the day, the simple word is trying to motivate. And I know somebody said you can motivate, but you cannot force. And that is absolutely true. You can't force a
No,
student to do anything,
we
you know?
had we had we're doing a podcast, by the way. So Dave will be in the podcast in the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
And we actually talked about that in the podcast. And Harry Waters, the co-host, had a really interesting idea of a student came in, and instead of saying I don't want to be here, they said my objective here, because Harry asked what their objective was, and they said my objective is actually no. What did they say? He said I want to be here. I don't want to be here, but I really want to be here. I can see why this is beneficial, and I want to enjoy it. Please help me
Yeah.
with that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've just mentioned, I've just seen a comment from Jean-Pierre, I think it was Louvrier, and he was kind of saying, well, doing things that are enjoyable so that, even the most reluctant. And to be honest, doing the reason why I included the last game in this session is because, to be honest, that's the kind of thing that works with me, is that even the most reluctant students, suddenly you'll notice that they're paying attention to you and wanting to do the activity.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
anything that we can do that kind of gets the student starting to like English and your class is a step in the right direction, right? And as we say, Rome isn't built in a day, wasn't built in a day, and that's
It
as
isn't.
a
It's built.
teacher, each small victory of like suddenly one of your reluctant students enjoying something that you did today is like a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. I'm going to move on if that's right with you, Dave.
Absolutely.
We've got something to share, haven't we? There we go. So let's see in the chat box. Has anybody seen this course before? Chat box. Yes or no? Has anyone seen this course before? I've got so many different windows going on. Usually a webinar is about 80,000 windows. There we go.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, we can see it.
We've got lots of yes. We've got some no's. Interesting. So this is a course for teaching English to teenagers. It's written by Dave Spencer, the man in the room. So during Dave's talk, he just shared a variety of classroom activities for those bustling areas we know as teen classrooms. His ideas were looking at one of the key things that teachers infamously or famously struggle with in the classroom, which is motivating students and ensuring they're all progressing. So I wanted to quickly let you know how Dave has managed to put the answer to some answers, potential answers to those issues in Gateway to the World. So firstly, how does Gateway to the World do this? Firstly, it taps into topics that truly resonate with teens. We've got all sorts of cultural pages and pop culture references as well, aiming to try and help you engage students in the actual content of that lesson as well, the topical content. Also with collaborative projects, there are collaborative projects throughout the course, and also there is something called a virtual classroom exchange. And in the virtual classroom exchange, you have the opportunity, if you would like, to do those projects across the world with another class who is also doing that project. It's a really neat piece of tech that's been developed for Gateway to the World, and it's going really, really well. And it really is bringing the future, or actually the present day working environment, into the classroom and allowing teenagers to really experience working online, which is, I'm sure you can speak to that, Dave, is how we do things really now, isn't it? It's all online. That's how we work.
Yeah, and definitely this the virtual classroom exchange is a pretty amazing thing. Yeah, sort of putting teenage students in contact with other teenagers around the world. So yeah, it's a bit science fiction. Yeah.
Yeah. Not anymore.
No.
So there are also four types of videos in Gateway to the World. We've got documentary style videos. There are flipped classroom grammar videos aiming to keep grammar sort of in the hearts and minds of the teenager. Hopefully making it slightly easier and exciting to learn grammar as well, which might be an issue for you too. Also, there's the great thinkers and great learners sections, which are there to help learners get the sort of social and emotional skills for now and for their future. Again, thinking about their sort of life in the next decade from now, they're going to be going into the world of work or academia, where things are going to change quite dramatically for them. So we really need to sort of set the foundation up for them emotionally. Oh, I missed anything, Dave?
No, I mean that's very nicely put. And you mentioned sort of university. I mean, Gateway to the World is the idea, and even the title of the book is introducing teenagers to life beyond the classroom, teaching them the skills that they need, not just for for English, but then also for life at school and then life beyond. So yeah, with thinking skills, critical thinking, creative thinking, and those 21st century skills, as it were, preparing them for life beyond the classroom. Yeah,
absolutely. And that in itself surely is going to be motivational for the students in terms of giving them some kind of intrinsic motivator.
Yeah.
In that it's going to be really important for them to learn these skills for their own benefit, for their own life. And they're interesting. They're really good fun to learn those skills and to practice them in the classroom, aren't they, generally?
Yeah.
The
Kahoot games.
Diana, yes, they are. Yeah, you just go to Kahoot. There's a Gateway Kahoot page. You can just go there. They're all free. Okay, Dave, I think if that's all right, we're going to start handing things over to you.
Cool. Yes, I'll see you all later. Okay, back for the third session. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Dave. See you later. Usoa, can I welcome you in while I stand on stage looking at the chat, waiting for Usoa to get in? Hello, everybody. By the way, I hope are you enjoying it on a scale of 1 to 10 so far? 11. I love it. I'm also 11. I'm enjoying it, an 11. Great. Good stuff. Okay, so while we're waiting for Usoa to get in here, why don't I start talking about it while we're waiting? Good, I'm glad you're enjoying. We've got 2 more sessions to go. We're not there. We've just had Dave, the wonderful Dave Spencer, and now we've got Usoa. Hi, Usoa. How are you?
Good. You?
Good. Great to see you again.
I know.
So I'm going to make you turn red by talking about your life for a little minute, if that's all right, before I hand over. So you're a secondary school teacher, and I love that's kind of one of the first things you say in your bio, that you are a secondary school teacher. No matter what else you've done, as impressive as it is, You're a teacher in secondary school. That's really fantastic. You're the president of APAC. Can you tell the audience here a little bit more about APAC?
Yeah, well, APAC is the English Teachers Association in Catalonia. So we're based in Barcelona, but aim for world domination. So we're very ambitious. And basically, I started being the president in July, but I've been collaborating with the association for almost 10 years, even longer, maybe. So
wow,
yeah, we
what's
aim
what's the mission statement? Is there sort of a thing that you're going for? Goal?
Yeah, so basically bringing English language teaching and love, spreading it throughout schools and trying to bring people together, build a community, and just get people to learn from each other. This is basically what we aim at doing.
Amazing. Good stuff, Richard. It sounds so exciting. What a president. You're interested in teen psychology as well, and you've got a keen interest in audio visuals and ICT to motivate students, which I believe is going to shine through in your talk.
Totally.
I'll hand things over. Have a lovely talk, everyone. I'll see you in about 30 minutes.
Thanks so much, Will. Let me share the screen. See if you can see it okay. Okay. Hi there, everyone. I've seen so many people from so many different countries now. Wow. I'm a little overwhelmed, I have to say. So Georgia, Lithuania, Brazil, Lima, Peru. Madre mia. Wow. Slovakia. Well, hello, everyone. Bulgaria. Oman, Belgrade, so many, like Dave was saying, so many countries I haven't been to. I love traveling, but I really need to, I need to really catch up because there's so many places I haven't been to. In any case, it's great to have you all here today. And like Dave was saying, like Dave was saying, we're here to talk about how to engage all of our learners, and this is going to be basically the aim of my session from the viewpoint of projects. So Will already introduced me a little, and I just wanted to show you that I'm the president of APAC, and if you can if you want to get in touch with us, here's our social media and here's our website. I'd love to hear your feedback from after the session, so hopefully we can get in touch soon. And without further ado, here are my 5 top tips to get all the students engaged. Of course, we only have 30 minutes. But I hope all these tips I'm going to show you are applicable to your learners as well. And if you put them in practice, and I'd really appreciate it if you let me know how they worked, or if you have any questions that you would like to discuss. So, okay, people are still saying hello from all the places in the world. My tip number 1 is to provide students with step-by-step instructions. I know this may sound very obvious, and in your head, the instructions you give are always really clear. It's always really, clear that the students have to do a certain thing. But has it ever happened to you that you give instructions and students all nod and smile at you? So you're thinking, okay, this is going well. And then once you ask them to get on with the task, they do something completely different. Or when you say, okay, do you have any questions? Nobody asks any questions, so apparently everything is crystal clear. And then something weird happens. They have no idea what they have to do. People are already answering through the chat, but I wanted to show you these 2 memes to ask you if you could relate to this. So the talking to a wall thing and the no questions, except for 2 minutes later, students are saying, I understand nothing. So people have already started to reply. Sure, this happens a lot. Many times face this all the time. Okay. Last class about 10 hours ago. Okay. Always, unfortunately. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Sorry. Lucila is saying hi. Always been there, done that. Totally. Yes. 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 You can relate. So true. Okay. Quite often. I think you can see we're all on the same page, right? This happens to everyone. Yes, so often concept checking questions. Yeah, this is something that I wanted to emphasize too. It's not only about giving clear instructions, but also obviously about checking understanding, but checking understanding for real, not just saying, so did you all understand? Because what are the students bound to say? They're going to say yes. Or is everything clear? Yes, they're going to look at you and smile and say yes. But is it really clear? So a lot of people are saying, how do you understand? Oh, Maya, that's an interesting question. Okay, how do you understand? Concept questions don't work. Okay, exactly. Dua is saying, are we going to write or speak? So you want to make sure you ask the students questions where they need to respond by showing that they've understood. You could also get the students to rephrase what you've said. Sometimes in monolingual classes, like I teach monolingual classes, I get the students to rephrase and translate what I said to make sure everyone is on board just in case. Jean-Pierre is saying, can you repeat the instructions to me? Totally. Ask them what they understand. Ask them to do a short activity. Give an example. Super. This is also another tip I wanted to discuss later. So in any case, I wanted to start with instruction giving and instruction checking. And I want to show you a couple of things just to make sure your instructions are indeed clear. Dua is saying, are we going to read for details or gist? Exactly. So you need to get their feedback to see if they really understood, to check that they really understood. In any case, about instructions, one of the things I recommend using, which I use in my lessons all the time when I generate material or give them handouts, for example, is icons. Icons such as this ones. Very simple, minimalistic icons that are pretty much universal. No matter if you don't speak English or you don't speak the language that other people are speaking, you would totally understand that this would be working in groups. This would probably mean write. This would probably mean talk, speak. This is a bit more specific. This is expert groups, but I showed them the icons at the beginning of the year so they know. This would probably mean individually, reading, thinking. So thanks to icons, you can get the students to already understand a lot more before actually reading the instructions. So less percentage of the students get lost or sidetracked. Yeah, I find this is important, icons. Another thing, sorry, these are the icons that I use with my students. I've made a quick summary. I got them from the nounproject.com. And this is what I show at the beginning of the year to let them know, okay, so this is what I'm going to use. And I always use the same icons for the same thing. So students already know to identify what that means. So, okay, people are still talking about, so it's a good idea to rephrase and give examples, totally. Are you going to do the activity individually or in groups? Okay, so we're concept checking still, yeah? Second thing I use to give clear instructions are checklists. I find checklists are extremely useful. First of all, to break down instructions into almost steps, like step by step, literally. And in this case, for example, one of the projects the students did ended up in a video recording. Most of them wanted to record a video. And so I wrote down the instructions of what they had to do in order to prepare for the video recording and the requirements they had to meet. So you speak only in English for at least a minute. You speak fluently without interruptions. So basically all the instructions they had to follow. And we read this checklist. First, they read it individually. Then I asked them, as task number 2, you can see here, to underline the most important words in each of the instructions, in each of the steps. And by doing this, we're actually checking that the students are not only actually reading the instructions, but also processing them, because if you are able to underline the main words, it means you're actually understanding what is being said to you. Then we read the checklist together in open class. I answered any comprehension questions the students may have, any vocabulary questions. But by doing this, I made sure we were all on the same page. Everybody knew what they had to do, how they had to do it. And the beauty of checklists like this is that you can not only use them before you do the task, but you can also use them before the students submit the task. In this case, submit the video, for example. And I used it as a self-assessment tool. And if you look at step number 4, I asked them, before you submit your video on Flipgrid, most of the students did this on Flipgrid, read the checklist again and tick the boxes that are true for you to make sure that you have done all the work and have followed the instructions. Ideally, the students would go over the checklist again, tick the items, and ideally all the items should be ticked. But if one of the items was not ticked, the students had to go back and revise their work before they submitted it. Yeah? Svetlana saying great job. Okay. And do we give a score for this checklist? This is, yes, thank you, Jay. this is the same checklist that I then use to assess their work. So yeah, it actually has a triple function. So thanks for pointing that out, Jake. All right, next thing, still with giving instructions, I also very often use infographics. Very simple, very visual way of getting students to understand what they have to do, how they have to do it. And if you, for example, if you have a corkboard or if you have an online classroom, you can post this as reference material and the students can refer back to it during the project, or if they have any questions, for example, they can use it as a reference. Yannick is saying, how about a student checking his fellow students' work? Yeah, this could also work as co-assessment. So, I mean, a checklist, yeah, can be used for a lot of different things. Alina saying needs a lot of time. The first time you create a checklist, maybe, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually quite useful, and you can recycle checklists over and over. You only need to change minor things. So you do spend time creating this, but then it's time saving in the end. All right, so let's move on to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is show final sample projects or show examples, model text. Somebody mentioned before, you need to let your students know what you want them to do and what for example, in this case, the final product is going to look like. To give them a clear idea of what you're expecting of them, yeah? So, for example, in this project from Getting Involved A2 related to Unit 8, the topic was holiday. And the task the students were asked to do was create a 3-day holiday plan for you and your friends. Okay, this may sound very simple, but maybe some students did not fully understand what is it, what does a holiday plan actually look like? So in the students' book, you have a model project, so a real example of what the task actually looks like. So the students would say, all right, so I need to write the date, I need to write the activities that I'm doing for each day, maybe add some pictures to illustrate, and they get a clear picture of what you're asking them to do. And then apart from this, they also have a video of other students presenting their plan. So they also get more ideas to use in their own projects. This is especially good for those students who are a bit lost or don't know where to start or don't really know how to actually do the project in itself. Yeah, so use yourself as a model, give sample answers. All of this is always extremely useful to reach the higher number of students possible. Let me check the chat. Oh, useful tip. Thanks so much, Ana Lucia. All right, moving on to tip number 3. Tip number 3 is be flexible. Of course, as teachers, we're always really flexible in everything. We try to accommodate, gauge our students' mood, gauge the class atmosphere, try to cater for everyone, make sure everyone is happy, bring their students' interest in the class. So, I mean, being a teacher is in itself being flexible. But in this particular case, I'm talking about giving the students choice. Just like Dave mentioned, of course, I cannot let my students choose everything because some stuff is out of my control and some stuff I know for a fact is going to be good for them. But I can give them certain choice when it comes to projects, for example, in terms of the final product they're going to create and the format that this final product is going to be in. Ana Lucia is saying choice is important, but it's a thin line. Yeah, so like I said, you cannot let students choose everything they like, but you can give them some options at least. Yeah, so maybe not an open question, but at least some options to choose from and how to do them. So let me give you an example to see what you think. In Get Involved A2+, in this case, in Unit 2, the topic is, how can teenagers learn about money? This is a very real life issue. And the task that students are asked to do is to make a proposal to get money for a business idea. And my question to you, if you can type your answers in the chat, is what final product could students create for this project? So how could the students make a proposal to get money for a business idea? What kind of things could they design? Could they create? Murvad, greetings from Egypt. Never been to Egypt, but I'd love to go. So hi there. Okay, they could get money by babysitting, Diana, indeed. I mean, what product could they create, for example, to advertise their babysitting company, or are they babysitting society? If they were, okay, wow, lots of ideas at the same time. So a leaflet, a campaign, a poster, a blog, fundraising. Okay, but the idea is what product could they create to advertise their fundraising? A pitch, totally. A pamphlet. They could create an ad, a TV ad, an advert, totally. Okay, advert, ads, this is repeated. A film, commercials, postcards, a blog. And they could get money by dog walking, indeed. Okay. Any other ideas? An advert, a TikTok video, a fundraising event, indeed. A presentation, a brochure, film. Okay, short video, a business plan. On Facebook, okay, they could do something on Facebook. A vlog, indeed. A web page. Wow. An ad, banners, a brochure. Exactly. So you're coming up with a lot of ideas. Social media ads, a Facebook page. Yeah. Wow. Reels, an oral presentation, online tools. Indeed. So a lot of ideas. And I mentioned these 4. Here is a slides presentation, a video, a poster, a leaflet. These are the ones I came up with. You obviously came up with a lot more. And if you notice, these ideas correspond to different levels of complexity, and they would cater for different learning styles, different learning speeds, and basically different preferences. Yeah, so these are 4 possible ideas that the students could create as products for this task. And then my other question to you is, if they create this task, if they want to create this task, what format could the students use? So what format could these tasks, these products be delivered in? For example, a poster. What tools could you create to make a poster, or to make a leaflet, or to make a presentation? Okay, so people are saying paper. Of course, paper is always an option. Online, Canva. Oh, Canva is very popular, apparently. So cardboard, obviously. PowerPoint, you're saying Google Slides, word clouds, photo room, Pinterest, Padlet. Padlet is really useful too. Book Creator, Canva, indeed. Slides. Okay, Mentimeter, PowerPoint slides. PowerPoint seems to be very popular too. Canva is like the #1 now. Okay. Genially as well, yeah. So look, here are some of the ones you mentioned and a few more maybe. If the students, for example, were to create a video, they could use Screencastify or Loom or Flip, which used to be Flipgrid. Or if they wanted to create a poster, they could obviously create a paper poster using cardboard, using paper, but also Canva if they wanted a digital poster. Or if they wanted to create a slides presentation, a digital presentation, maybe Google Slides, maybe Genially. Maria is saying Jamboard as well. So lots of options. And the important thing to see here is that while you're doing this project and you're letting students choose the format they would like to use, you're also developing their digital literacy as well, which is obviously key in nowadays world. So you're doing 2 in 1, basically. All right, I think so far so good. Moving on to, oh, sorry, I had another question for you, but I think from the answers, how often do you use these tools in class? Some people are still saying tools, maybe Adobe Express, indeed. How often do you and your students use these in class? Just as a quick sort of poll. Once a week. Okay, 6 are saying once a week. Diana's saying often, always. Each student once a term, sometimes, often, every day, occasionally. Okay, so lots of opinions here. Once a week, okay. Once a month, sometimes. There are obviously different frequencies, wherever possible, every day, every project. Okay, just some food for thought. So you would be developing the students' digital literacy with this too, once a week, once a month. Obviously, it depends on the technology you have available in your classes and the devices. But okay, from time to time. In any case, I think we're talking pretty technological teachers here. So really cool. Really glad to hear. All right, so moving on to tip number 4, assign roles. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Kagan roles. I brought the book here. Oh, it's actually really heavy. It's a very chunky book. But basically, I'm not on commission or anything, but this is a book that I use very often for cooperative learning. So when I do projects and I do group work, I use this book very often. It's by Spencer Kagan and his son, Miguel Kagan. And in chapter 11, you can find this chart here, this little poster here. which is called the dozen cooperative learning roles. So how often do you assign your students roles? Do you assign your students a specific function within their group? Any thoughts in the chat? Okay, most of the time, Omar, you're saying? Oh, never heard of this, Jaroslava, okay. Sometimes. Timekeeper, okay, Malika, you use timekeeper. Leader, writer. Obviously, there are different names to each role, and you don't need to use this Kagan roles, but I'm just showing this to you because I think it's really usefully, sort of very, very beautifully summarized, very useful to have. Let me show you the roles I most often use. When I get my students to work in groups, it's usually works of 4, 5. So these are the roles that I most often use. People are saying timekeeper, secretary, quality manager. Thank you, Jose David. Leader, teacher assistant, timekeeper, trash monitor. Okay, that's funny. Presenter, so researcher. Okay. Dominant students, always timekeepers or assistants. Exactly. So Otabek, I hope I'm saying your name right. Roles are assigned to students, so everyone has a specific task. And you need to be very strategic with who you give each role to. For example, I often go for encourager, which is basically the person who makes sure everyone is working, everyone is happy, everyone is involved, and sort of similar to a cheerleader, basically. Then there's also the question commander, who's in charge of trying to answer questions within the group and also liaising with the teacher in case there's a question. And this is really useful because it avoids or it prevents students from standing up and coming up to you all the time. So you have like a secretary, sort of running secretary. Then there's also the focus keeper, somebody mentioned already, tries to get everyone on task, focused, doing what they're supposed to do. And this is really useful because this is like a mini teacher within the group. So it tries to monitor, and it really makes classroom management much easier. Then the recorder, I think somebody mentioned the recorder as well. So written representatives, I think Nadine said. If you have only one person writing, this person is the recorder. Or if you want to make sure everybody's writing, either writing on pen and paper or typing, you can have the recorder make sure that everyone is doing the task. Ruby saying leader, monitor, encourager. We all need to assign these cooperation roles, because some people are saying reporter. I totally agree with Ruby, because assigning these roles means that the students have specific tasks to do and they are more efficient, basically. So the class works better because, as Dave said, it would be ideal if we could multiply ourselves and be 15 teachers for 15 students. But unfortunately, usually there's 1 or 2 teachers in the class. So if you assign roles, you're making sure the students are focus and know what they have to do. And last but not least, the last role I often assign is the quiet captain. Exactly, Maya's saying it keeps students task oriented, indeed. Yeah, because when you assign a role to a student, my students at least, they take it very seriously and they really want to fulfill their roles and their responsibilities. Petra saying, how about letting the students choose the task? They can choose the role they want to take. But I wouldn't do this in the first few times where you assign roles. So the first few times I would do it yourself, just to show them what they can choose from, for example. And then maybe you can give them more room to choose, if possible, indeed. Yenok is saying, I hope I'm saying your name right. Yenok is saying, quiet captain is my favorite. It's my favorite as well. And I have this one student, I'm thinking of a particular student who's usually very talkative, very rowdy, and he moves a lot, he fidgets a lot. But when we do project work, this one time I assigned the role of quiet captain to him, and this was really, really amazing because he took it so seriously that he really made sure his group spoke quietly and they kept the volume low. So normally he's the one that needs to be told to quiet down a little bit, but in this case, it was his responsibility and he took it really seriously. And he did a great job doing this. So people are saying, can you let students choose what role they want to perform? Totally. But I think you need to be very strategic, yeah, when you do that. So some people are saying, do they always have the same roles? No, hopefully you can get them to change. But I think in this case, for example, with this particular student, the quiet captain role was basically the best. Ruby saying they feel they can achieve everything. It's so nice to watch them, to cheer up with the roles. You're pronouncing my name quite right. Oh, thank you for that, Yannick. Okay, cool. Any case, I don't know if there are any more questions. I think you're doing okay. So last but not least, tip number 5. This is also linked to what Dave was saying about getting to know your students, bonding with your students. We have a lot of different personalities in the classroom, basically because every student is a different person and they have their own tastes, their own interests, their own hobbies, their own background. So obviously, when you find something interesting, not only students, but people in general find something interesting, they're more motivated. So the engagement is higher. And that's why if you find out about your students, what they like, what makes them tick, their background, their families. I mean, I don't mean to be nosy, but if you generally find out about them, you can use this information not only to bond with them, but also to select the projects that are the most appropriate, the project that you will that will be the most successful in your class. And in turn, while doing this project which will be successful, you're also getting to know your students a lot better. Let me give you an example. In this case here, this is from Get Involved B2. And the topic was, what's the best new skill you've ever learned and how can you teach it to others? And I actually did this project. This is B1, but I did this project with my 15, 16 and 17-year-olds. So I adapted the instructions to do it with 3 different groups because I thought it was a really cool project to do. The task the students got was create a tutorial to teach your classmates a new skill. Well, I added your classmates and your teachers. I included myself as a student, a new skill. And like I was saying before, I gave them a model answer, the one provided by the book. And in this model answer, they were shown how to say hello, how to learn to say hello in 5 different languages. But I wanted to make it a bit more personal. And so to give them even more examples, I basically volunteered to be the first one to actually do the project and create the final task, which was the tutorial. And I said, I would like to do the tutorial, to give you the tutorial live instead of record it. And so I took them all to the gym, 3 different groups, obviously. And I taught them how to dance swing. Well, I taught them one swing dance step. I used to dance swing a few years ago. And so I said, look, this is one of my hobbies. I really like jazz music, swing music. I really like dancing. I really like Lindy Hop. None of them had ever heard of Lindy Hop, which is a type of swing dance. And so I took them to the gym and I showed them how to dance this basic Lindy Hop step. You can imagine that this was really chaotic. I mean, it was 25 teenage students dancing in a gym. But it was so much fun. It was really a lot of fun. And it was not only fun, but it was great for role reversal. So the students saw me from a different perspective. They got to know me from a different angle. They got to know things about me that they didn't know. Most students think that teachers sort of are born and live in the school, right? So we spend our days in the school and sleep there too. So they didn't know that dancing was one of my hobbies, and they learned that. And they saw me in a different way. And the bonding, the relationship that was created with this was completely different, because what I was teaching them was to start with not academic. It was in English, but it was not about English, and it was not academic. So the students' reactions were completely different. A lot of them got the step, but in any case, even if they didn't, we had a lot of fun and we laughed a lot. So I think this was one of the best projects I ever did, to be honest. Oh, Jaroslav is saying, I have done this. I enjoyed it so much. Best project ever. Totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. What did the students come up with? Well, one of the students taught us how to play chess. Another student taught us how to do origami. That was really cool. Another student taught us how to do karate, some karate moves, because she used to do karate in her free time. And then this one of the student, this is really funny, because when you ask students, what's the best new skill you've ever learned? A lot of the students said, I don't know. I don't know anything. I cannot teach anything to my peers. So this is also an exercise of self-reflection, trying to get the students to get to know themselves better. And this one student taught us how to draw. And to be honest, I was amazed, because not only was he incredible at drawing, but I had absolutely no idea that he was so good. So from that day on, I knew that he had this skill and I could use it to my advantage as well. So whenever we did something that it required so creative drawing skills, I could choose him. And of course, he had his minute of fame, or his 15 minutes of fame rather. So I think that was really, really cool. Yeah, Mar was saying Egyptian students will say football game skills. Of course, they need to choose a skill that they can teach in the classroom. Yeah, football skills. Well, maybe if you can go to the playground if you have room. So Maria is saying one of our students taught us how to effectively pack our luggage. This is a really 21st century, very useful skill indeed. So thanks for sharing that, Maria. All right, so Will is telling me we're coming to the end. So just as a quick wrap up. Sorry. I wanted to tell you a million other things, but just the main ideas of today's session, the takeaway ideas. We talked about giving detailed instructions, clear instructions, visual instructions, using icons, using infographics, checklists. We talked about also as a means of self-assessment or also teacher assessment or co-assessment. The importance of giving model text, of giving an example, of giving sample projects for the students to look at. Trying to provide students with a choice, both in the final product and in the format of what they have to do, and assigning students roles so they have specific tasks to do within the class and within their group. And last but not least, trying to get students' interest or find out students' interest to select the best projects, the most successful projects for your class, and in turn, getting to know your students better thanks to these projects. So hopefully, this was not too rushed. I wanted to tell you a lot of things about how to engage people, but this is my contact info in case you want to get in touch. I'd really like to hear from you after the webinar to see if you have any suggestions or to see if you've implemented any of the ideas in your classes. So I really look forward to hearing from you soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Yusoa. That was wonderful. Again, to watch it again, it was just so brilliant and just so grounded and genuinely helpful. There was lots of I loved how much you chatted to the audience as well. You were really, there was sort of like every 2 or 3 minutes you had something for them to sort of they've got to work for this webinar. They weren't getting away for free with this one.
Yeah, the chat is going crazy still.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? I think we've never had so many comments. I don't want to count the number of comments. It could be
nice avatar. Oh yeah, this was done on Bitmoji, just in case.
Okay. Oh yeah, your avatar. You're wondering about the avatar. I'm so glad you kept it. I'm so glad you kept it. Okay, great. So we've got the question. I'm going to put the poll up on screen now. Thanks, Daria. Gosh, she's fast. Daria already put it up. Thank you, Daria. So we've got a question. So thinking about project work again, we want to see sort of where are teachers at the moment in terms of where their mind is and their sort of progress is, I suppose, technical progress and their feel about where they want things to go. So when it comes to project work, would you rather do projects with your students in your own classroom, much like Yusoa was just talking about, and you've got them face-to-face communication in person, really, really helpful practice for the future for many, many reasons that Yusoa has just been through and more. There's loads of different skills going on there. But then you've got the other side of the coin, which is that the teenagers that you're teaching today in 10 years' time will be in the world of work, which in my experience, unless they're going to, it depends what they're doing completely, of course. But for a lot of work, it's basically virtual. There's a lot of virtual working happening. It's kind of where businesses have gone, and rightfully so, I think, because it's not only better for the environment, it's just a lot easier. I find it a lot easier to do that. It's sort of stopping people flying around the world to do various things, and that's really helping the environment. So we've also got the argument that should we actually be developing them in this way? Should we be helping them to collaborate people across the world in a virtual space with other people who are also learning their English? So question for you, what do you think? Do projects with students in your own classroom physically, or do you want to be able to collaborate virtually on projects with other schools around the world? I'll leave that up for a bit longer. Keep going. If you're doing it in the chat, please do just put it in the poll, so that because I'm trying to get percentages here. I want to know roughly where everyone's sat.
Yeah, so
where are you sat?
Saying both are really important. Okay, so
yeah. What about you, Yusoa?
I would also go for 50-50, I guess, because face-to-face projects are great, but it's also great to get students to communicate with other students outside the class. And like we were saying earlier, to bring the outside world to the classroom, or rather to bring the classroom to the outside world, so to establish this connection. because the classroom, after all, is only one of the places where students, in this case, learn English, not the only one, obviously. So
absolutely, yeah. I mean, they're off their own back outside of the classroom. They're doing some of their own stuff, aren't they?
Exactly.
In English, because that's the way a lot of spaces are.
Exactly. Olena's saying, as for me, it's both important. Adriana saying, for me, a single choice was difficult. Okay.
Yeah, of
Oh,
course.
thank you, Lois. Oh, thank you, everyone. So yeah, I wanted both option. Okay, so Claire is saying I wanted to choose both.
Yeah. Sure, fair enough. All right, Daria, let's share that. While you're doing that, I'm going to.
Okay, so let's look at the results. Okay, almost even.
Yeah, almost even actually. Yeah, it's definitely not swaying one way or another. So a lot of people are just very happy with those face-to-face skills. Of course, still very, very important. But actually, yeah, under half. So 47% would like the option of being able to collaborate virtually. Yeah, okay, cool. Alrighty, let me just get this up here. Again, so I've got 20,000 windows here.
Stop sharing.
Yeah, if you could actually, that'd be great. Thank you. So I've got webinar chat. I have to close webinar chat. Say again.
Tina's saying, "Oh, what energy inside! You're an inspiration." Oh, thank you.
Oh, there are loads of. You need to scroll back up that chat box, Ursula. While I'm doing this bit, why don't you scroll up and make yourself feel better? Because you've got some lovely comments in there.
Thank you so much.
Oh
my God!
Thank you, Ursula, of course.
Wow, thank you for having me.
Okay. So Usola's just shown us today loads of practical ideas for getting teenagers involved in the project work and making sure that they are all involved in one form or another. I love those sort of, what did you call them? They're not archetypes, but those sort of characters at the end. I love that idea. Really, really nice. So the subject of this session was actually inspired by a course called Get Involved, which is another teenage course that we've got, 6 levels for teenagers that places collaborative projects and language skills and life skills at the center. So it's all about project work and life skills, basically, and of course, it's an English language learning course. So what the projects do is follow a systematic, step-by-step approach. Each unit's lessons engage students with particular meaningful tasks associated with a particular topic. And then throughout the projects, there are models, as Uso has just spoken about, there are already models in there, and project videos for every project. We're hoping that the aim of this course is to help students feel confident about using English in real life, which is kind of the end goal. I know a lot of them are preparing for more medium-term assessment things, and they've got certain reasons they need to learn English more specifically. But in the end, they're all preparing themselves for the world after education, which at the moment is very much in English. So the idea behind Get Involved is exactly that. It's got the projects and it's got the language and the models and the videos and sort of all the tools you should need to engage them in project work. Anyway, take a look. There's a QR code on the screen. There's a resources link if you're on Zoom to click on that to go and have a look. There are free samples if you want to have a go at the course in your classroom as well. If you're on Facebook and LinkedIn, you can scan the QR code, or there'll be something in the comments. I think there's a link in the comments now for you to go and have a look at the website as well. So can I please invite Dave and Usoa and Maria Luisa back? Dave back, Maria Luisa in. Hello.
Hello again.
Hello again. How are you doing, Maria? Have you sort of rested a bit? You had a 4 a.m. session this morning.
I did. You know that surprisingly feeling quite fresh.
Great. Well, let's hope it survives until whenever the last one is tonight. You're doing great, and I'm just completely in awe of everybody who does these early morning and late finishes. Dave and Usoa, you have not got it easy later, so thank you in advance for doing that for us. Okay, so a little bit of a zoom in now on you, Maria, if that's okay, because it's definitely not been said about you. So 25 years in ELT, and you started in chemical engineering, as most ELT teachers know. That's where you start, isn't it? If you're going to go into ELT, you study chemical engineering at university, right?
Exactly. That's what I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the standard path, isn't it, for teaching English in class? Yeah.
Exactly.
What
Yeah,
happened
no,
there?
but as I was telling you, and now it feels like a former lifetime. In a former
Yeah.
lifetime, I was a chemical engineer.
So you did actually, you got your BA and you actually worked in the industry as well, did you, for a while?
I did. I was actually in production for some time. I
Wow.
was
And did that at some point ever creep back into your career further down the line? Or is it sort of, I am done with that. This is where my heart is. I'm an English teacher.
no, you know that sometimes what I get back from it is that I have this way of thinking in terms of processes.
Okay.
So I think, for example, languages are systems, so they have different aspects to them, and we just have to put each aspect in its right place, and that's it. It is that simple.
So you only need one lesson in English really for a couple of minutes. It's kind of solid.
That's it.
Job done.
Yeah, no, it's really a former lifetime.
Yeah, got it.
I just find it entertaining to remember a former lifetime.
Well, we're very glad that you did make that change, Maria Louisa. Thank you very much for doing that. You didn't do it for us, but cheers anyway. You've worked with us on all sorts of stuff, and we're always grateful to have you back. So thank you so much for putting this talk together, Maria. And have a lovely session. I'm going to leave you all to it. Bye-bye. See you in about half an hour.
Thank you very much. Now let me share my screen, which is here ready. Okay, there we are. Well, thank you very much again, of course, to Macmillan Education. I am really honored and honored to be sharing with Usoa and Dave, and very grateful to Macmillan and Will, and really humbled by seeing so many people from lands so far away. But now I suppose that because of the time, I have again next door neighbors from Ecuador, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Peru, Argentina, Uruguay, Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, of course. I have seen a couple, 2 or 3 Mexican teachers, Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Canada. Turns out they are also my this side of the world neighbors, and all those wonderful places far away. So I am going to tell you about a research that Macmillan Education carried out a year ago. More or less, the main objectives of the research were firstly to find out about teenagers' interests, hobbies, and what they like and dislike about English lessons and course books, and to see whether and how tendencies shift between ages 11 and 18. The survey was sent out as part of everyday activities. And I think that it is very important to mention, firstly, that no personal information was collected. Students were not asked any personal details other than their age. They were not asked, for example, their gender, their region, what type of school they attended, and they were not asked what course book they were using. There were open and closed questions, so all of this was summarized and recoded to be able to express it as quantitative data trends. There was a completion rate of 87%, which in numbers, it was over 3,000 students that completed the survey. I would like to advise you to be ready with a pinch of salt for all this information, because about 70% of the responses come from 15 to 18-year-olds. It was only about 3% that comes from the 11 and 12-year-olds group. So to begin very quickly with what teenagers like to do in their free time. What do you think are teenagers' favorite pastimes? Sleeping. Yeah. Chat, music, computer games, social media in general, dating. Yeah. Vaping. Oh my God. Okay, TikTok, yeah, meeting friends, hanging out, YouTube videos, exactly. Computer games, yeah. You do know your students, because indeed this is more or less what I mean, in general, what the survey found. 60% mentions for listening to music, a very solid first place. Also spending time with friends, watching series, watching videos, both TikToks and now YouTube that has this video, I mean, short video app. Exactly, the shorts on YouTube, and playing online games, right? There are some variations in the order for some of them. Listening to music is a solid first place in all age groups. And there are some variations with the others. Sorry, I forgot to mention that the 6 countries that this information comes from, there were market cuts where more than 100 answers were received. So the 6 countries that were considered are Spain, Switzerland, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, Poland, and Mexico, interestingly enough. So in these 6 markets and in the 4 groups of age, there are some variations, but in any case, the top 5 are this. Okay, some of them are less popular with age, and some of them more. For example, watching series and spending time with friends becomes increasingly important with age. 17 to 18-year-olds actually switch how important it is to spend time with family to the importance of spending time with friends, right? For example, playing online games, the importance of playing online games decreases with age. It is most important for 15 to 16-year-olds, but 17 and 18-year-olds are not so much into playing online games any longer. Okay. As for what exactly are the types of music and series and online games, etc., they like, I'm sure I want to say that you're not surprised by this. What I find interesting is that teenagers are most likely to say that their favorite type of music is pop across countries and age groups. Okay, and then the other 3 more or less change in different countries. Rap, I am not precisely a fan, but I think that it might be useful, for example, to teach pronunciation, rhythm, etc. Hip hop and this variant trap are mentioned, and rock still there. I will reveal my age if I say still rock and roll to me. So it is there actually in the top 5. Okay. As for series, Netflix and or series that were available at Netflix at some point are favorites. Right now, yeah, I agree. I miss your name. Yeah, rap, not my favorite either. And this variant trap, I understand it is even a bit violent, but as Dave mentioned a while ago, we can only do so much. Anyway, back to series. Stranger Things and Wednesdays, definitely lots of mentions, as well as Breaking Bad with the older. I think it's interesting that it didn't make it to the top 10, but about 9% of respondents mentioned a manga or anime series, and along with a significant number of teen dramas in the list. So maybe we need to find out more about this. And also something that really struck me is that older series like Friends, for example, ranks third with the youngest and fifth with the oldest. They are still there. It is still there, okay? As for online games, well, 11 to 16-year-olds mention Minecraft and Fortnite in first and second place, respectively. And 17 to 18-year-olds mention League of Legends and Counter-Strike Global Offensive in first and second place. It is, I think that it is important that, and I included there the FIFA game, because sports, practicing sports, doesn't make it to the top 5 free time activities. It only makes it to the top 5 with 11 to 12-year-olds. And well, practicing sports is an activity that at least I like to associate with teenagers. So I was a bit surprised by that. Apparently, only the FIFA game. Okay. Film series, Harry Potter continues to be #1 for all age groups. And yeah, I mean, Harry Potter is what, 22 years since it was launched. And actually, I think that the author helped teenagers to recover the taste for reading. Okay. Teenagers' favorite subjects, English, again, in most countries as a solid first place, along with physical education, math, biology, and art. Okay. I think that this is very good news for us, and also a huge responsibility to keep that place for what we teach. Favorite classroom activities. I noticed, and in my experience here in Mexico, teachers tend to find the development of teaching skills of speaking skills quite challenging, but they do like speaking activities. They do like pair and group work. They really like games and watching videos. The youngest mentioned projects in the top 5, and then that moves with age. But look at this. 17 to 18-year-olds have reading interesting texts in their top 5, right? So they do like to read. I find an increasing concern of teachers about development of reading skills, and it does become more important and more in their lives with age. The list of favorite activities are video exchanges, singing. I find this interesting because they love music, but they don't like singing in the classroom. Okay, they like activities in speaking activities in pairs and small groups, but they don't like performance-based activities, which means to me careful with the play roles that we choose and how we implement the activity in the classroom. I found interesting that projects are in the 4th place down the scale from 13 to 18-year-olds. So maybe I am sure that we want to take into account Usoa's recommendations and Dave's recommendations to make a project such an effective learning challenge, to get them in the interest of our students, right? What teenagers dislike about their English books? 20% answered nothing. They really like it, which corresponds to English being their favorite subject. I need to emphasize that teenagers, respondents, were not asked which is the course book that they were using. So in my experience, in many schools, also house-produced materials are used, and they may very well be referring to this. And we have, of course, the student that dislikes everything about, about the book, which sounds very teenager, right? And probably is the student that simply doesn't like English, that has not found the value to it, or comments that I would totally filtered, like not enough translated words. We don't want, we're not teaching them translation, right? So that's very, very quickly in a nutshell what Macmillan Education found out about this in this study about teenagers. So now I think that I have a number of questions for Dave and Usoa. Thinking of your presentation a while ago, both of you, Dave and Usoa, I find the uniformity impressive, because I think that it is a very significant age gap from 11 to 18. 11-year-olds are still in primary school, while 18-year-olds are already going to university, right? It's only a few aspects that change. It is quite uniform. So I think that we should not be tricked by this uniformity. As Dave, as you mentioned, we have to find out what makes each student unique.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, I think, you know, there might be different reasons why they like similar music or similar series, etc. But I think Uso and I think we both think that, I mean, they are very different in terms of maturity, obviously. You know, if you're all of us who've been in the classroom with 12-year-old students, they are going to be really pretty different from 16, 17-year-olds, even if they like similar things. Uso, would you agree?
Yeah, the way they process information, the way they, the depth they can go to. So it's clearly different, at least.
That's right. Just even how much they can take in, in one lesson. Obviously, then if we get onto books, then length of texts, you know, the degree of sophistication of, say, language explanations,
complexity
you know,
of ideas. I mean, in general.
Yeah. So. Exactly. Yeah, I think they are clearly very different. Whether their hobbies are similar, that maybe has explanations, as we've said. Maybe they have older brothers, older sisters that they're copying. Also, this idea of like aspiring to be older than they actually are. You know, generally a teenager, even a young teenager, would like to imagine what they're like when they're older, rather than you know, imagining that they're younger than they actually are. And you know, we talked about feeling as if you're being patronized. I mean, I think it is important that, in a way, you know, when we're preparing materials for younger teenagers, we still have to kind of treat them in a way that they are older. You know, they're not. They are more juvenile, but they don't want to feel more juvenile.
Exactly. And I was thinking that maybe also this uniformity responds to the crave they have for this sense of belonging when, well, all of us, when as we grow up, well, being teenagers, right?
Can I make... Oh, sorry. I was just going to make a point that it's come up a few times in the chat box recently, and it's kind of making me think it's very interesting. It's sort of like, you know, saying it depends on the student because they like different things. I think one thing that we don't take into account, even with the type of classroom activities that students like, is what you like as a teacher, what you believe in, and therefore what you make your students like. So just a different way of thinking about this is if you really believe, let's say, I don't know, reading, whatever, or group work or project work, if you believe firmly in project work, your students are probably going to believe firmly in project work too. So, our own influence as teachers, I think, is actually, has to be, we're talking about teaching, not just like free time activities. I think what teachers, if you think singing in class is a great activity, I can imagine you pulling it off. I don't like singing in class, and my students don't like me singing in class, so it's probably not going to work. But no, seriously, do you know what I mean? If you believe in it, you can probably make anything happen.
It's true that enthusiasm is contagious.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're enthusiastic and energetic and happy about something, the students just catch on. Even if they're teenagers, even if they pretend they don't care, but it's true. They can see the motivation in you. They can see the passion you bring to things.
That's right. I mean, Ruby Quijano has just made a great point. We are our students' biggest influencers, and in the classroom, we are, right? I mean, when you believe in something passionately, that comes across, and we're all different as well. We've talked today about how students are different, but actually, teachers were different too. And what I just believe in passionately might not be the same as my colleague. And again, it's all good if we're getting the passion from our students, right?
Yeah, Dana's saying it's like this. If we enjoy it, they will enjoy it as well. This clearly shows.
That's true.
Clearly shows.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we light up when we think of these things that we feel passionate about. There was one very interesting question in the survey. If you could be anyone in the world, who would you choose to be? And a great majority answered, I choose to be myself, right? Even more than Leo Messi, Harry Styles, and Shakira. I remember Shakira made it to the top 5 as well, but not as many as myself. So, Uso, I keep on thinking about this when you present all the different ways in which we can help them with projects, giving them this opportunity for self-expression, right?
I think it's key. I think giving them the chance to be themselves and to say what they think, how they feel, what they like, what they are, is really key. I mean, often teenagers are criticized for just saying the first thing that comes to their minds, or for being very negative, or for complaining all the time, being whiny. But if you listen to them, if you ask the right questions, you get very interesting answers, very surprising answers too. And you can actually learn a lot from them yourself as an adult.
Exactly. I saw a question a moment ago. Adriana was asking whether there were different results in different countries. There is a slight variation, right? But what I found interesting is that, for example, the top 5 activities are the same, probably in slightly different order, but the activities are exactly the same. Speaking of which, you have already mentioned that we should find out about them, right? And to some extent, bring that into our lessons and activities. How does this enhance the learning experience? Does it have an impact on only on motivation?
Well, I mean, it gives you obviously things to talk about in class, as it were. And I suppose maybe the most important thing is, teaching is about rapport, isn't it? So, when whatever you know about your students, it's always going to help you, and you can. I mean, I always make the point, it sounds like a small point. I mentioned it in my cafe session last week, but, when students walk into the class and, you're just about to start the class and you've got time to chat, the fact that you know something about them, whether it's they play in a football team and did you win last weekend, or whether it's about, they've got a favorite band and you know what it is, and have they got a new song, or, I mean, it just helps that rapport. I think that is the kind of the key. I suppose then we could talk about, whether, we want to make that the center of our lesson. Is that everything that we're talking about? Probably not. Then we're going to kind of get onto the meat of the lesson, and that sometimes could incorporate things about, a text about Stranger Things, or about, or about whatever, trap. It was funny when you were mentioning
Dance.
trap and rap and all the rest. It's kind of, there's the famous quotation, isn't there, about sort of, young people are disrespectful and etc. etc. And it comes from ancient Greece. That there's sort of, yeah, it kind of, rock and roll was the music of the devil. So I kind of, being in the classroom, it does kind of keep you young in the sense that, if I think of myself, I had long hair and I liked rock music when I was like, in the 1970s. So probably for my teacher, I was a rebel, and being honest, that's kind of part of being a teenager, and I think that's good for us teachers to kind of just remember, right, that we were young too, and music changes and television changes,
Exactly.
but
And
the
keep up
essence
with like
And this-
changing times and new trends, and yeah, basically
Absolutely.
be open-minded.
One thing we haven't mentioned is K-pop, which I don't know in the chat box. You can tell me if your students like K-pop, but I mean, all
It
my
does.
again, it
It
tends
does
to be the
right.
younger in my classes. But I mean, K-pop and like learning about K-pop, and I just literally, because it's my profession, I have a look and see what's happening. Who are the biggest bands and what is it about them, and why do they like them? I think you mentioned manga, anime. That's really
Yes,
really popular.
yes.
And it wasn't when I was a kid, and that's part of your job as a teacher, I suppose, is I mean, I think it just happens naturally, right? So that you find
Yeah.
out about what they're interested in. You can't not do that.
Not be,
Basically, you take an
exactly.
interest in them. They're people, right? You're the people they're dealing with. You're not dealing with robots. So, I mean, there is some sort of empathy and like, yeah, interaction.
And as you mentioned, Ursula, and I take Dave's comment as well, this opportunity for exchange with our students also gives them important information about us.
Yes.
Right? So
yes.
I sing in a choir, so I wouldn't hesitate to try singing activities in the classroom.
But I think there's genuine respect there as well. That they realise that you are older too, so that you've given a great example. So in your talk about Lindy Hop and stuff, it's like okay, maybe they wouldn't be doing it, but they're fine to accept and admire that you do it and that we have different interests. Jean-Pierre has made a very important point again about this idea of genuinely interested, and I think that that kind of that underlies, doesn't it, everything that we're talking about, is that if you're genuinely interested, then it works. If you kind of try and pretend to be interested in what their favorite K-pop band is, but it's clear that you don't care, then it kind of doesn't work, because again, it's rapport, right?
Yeah, and it's not about wanting to be like them. It's not,
No.
oh, I love K-pop just because you love K-pop. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I mean,
actually, just silly things. I mean, you mentioned rock. I mean, I like a lot of like classic rock, and actually a lot of students today, they kind of do know it from their parents, etc. So when they suddenly find out that, I went to see Deep Purple, it's like, oh, wow, it's kind of sort of like, but as I think somebody said, each person is different. So I mean, that's in a way the kind of difficulty of this is that you could be interested in K-pop, but a large sector of your class probably really hates it. I mean, that's kind of life too, right?
So you need to strike a balance. If you focus on just one thing, right?
Exactly. So I think that's the answer to the last question. Striking a balance and being genuine about it, right? Then bringing their outside world into the classroom would have a positive impact. Am I right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's true that what they like and what they show you can also influence you as a person. So I mean, I a lot of my students love music very different from the music that I listen to, but they've recommended several songs. Some of the songs they say, no, teacher, this is not for you. But some of the songs they say, oh, you'll really, really like this, check it out. And sometimes I have really liked what they recommended. And when you tell them, it's like, oh my God, the teacher's listening to what I recommended. This is great. And this is tied in with what Dave was saying as rapport and connections. I mean, in the end, we're all humans. We're all dealing with different personalities here. So
that's right. One thing we haven't mentioned about that I mentioned, which I think is possibly useful to mention, is propriety, as in, we've mentioned sometimes, some rap lyrics could be profoundly, I mean, I'm not talking about just that you don't like it. I'm saying they could be profoundly
offensive,
offensive, abusive,
inappropriate. Yeah.
And I do think that, as an older teacher, but I think just as a teacher, that I think we have a responsibility, to be very, very wary of that. We could talk about age limits as well for things like films and television. I would be very careful about showing things that are, 18 to a class of 15. And at home, they might be doing it, but that's not my problem, as it were. But I think
we have to contribute to that.
That's right. And I think also, maybe our school authorities, whether you're working in a private school or a state school, you could obviously, I think it's worth mentioning, you could get into trouble, and probably rightly so. We have a responsibility to all of our students, because maybe, 60% think it's great, but like you've got somebody there who's maybe quiet, but who is not feeling good about it. So.
Well, it needs to be appropriate too, right? Like you're the one with the criteria to select, okay, this is coming into my classroom. They might well like this, but this is not coming into my classroom.
Yeah,
exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And we have a question from Alicia Juarez. I think it's interesting because she has a group, I suppose not only mixed ability, but mixed ages, from teenagers to adults over 40. So maybe, Alicia, you can take Dave's and Usoa's suggestions as well to try and integrate their likes to work with in the classroom. Is that right?
I think that 40-year-olds could learn a lot from the teenagers and vice versa.
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. You just have to convince them to give it a try.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I think that very punctually this time we're finishing exactly on.
We nailed it this time.
Yes, we did. Thanks very, very much. Thank you very much, all of you, for your attendance, and thank you, Usoa. Thank you, Dave. It's been a pleasure, really.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, very interesting conversation, and we could definitely continue another day. So yeah, thanks to everybody for following.
I look forward to it.
It could go on, couldn't it? It could go on. You're very welcome to. You can do that if you like. You can set up a Google Meet, but we've got to go.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. Can I just say thank you to Maria? I know you had such a job on your hands then, because we gave you a pretty gigantic report of this.
Again,
it's a very big research project.
It was a little messy, but we're there.
I like it.
Things are going to get messy.
Isn't he wonderful?
I like it.
Still wearing Barcelona's.
I still prefer to be myself, Maria Luisa.
Me too. I'd rather not be messy either.
Just to go back to what you were saying, actually, just about the about 18 certificates and 15 certificates. Don't you also think that things that are 18s or 15s are actually getting the ratings are getting a little bit not?
I think they are.
So a 15 film in my day. I'm sorry that I can say that word though, that phrase now, but in my day, a 15 certificate film, an 18 certificate film is actually now a 15 certificate film, and they feel content that was once for adults is actually now appropriate for teenagers, and it's on a slippery slope. So I think, just to reiterate what you were saying, all of you, I think, about the content that we show, it's like Breaking Bad is really graphic content. Certain episodes of that show, it's really not appropriate for 15-year-old people.
I think what's interesting as a teacher is, of course, we are part of society. So society, in a way, is kind of that slippery slope, and parents too, and teachers, schools. Maybe we have a certain responsibility in society, even of kind of maintaining some kinds of levels, because
barriers.
What you were saying about appropriacy, not everything goes, even if in their own private life they may do whatever.
Yeah. It's difficult. It's a difficult line. You've got to just, as you said, Dave, it's kind of their problem. That's the parents' decision to make. We can't have any control over it. Anyway, so I just want to say thanks again to you, Maria, because we gave you a massive job. I mean, everyone, just so you're aware, this report is huge. It's something like 60 slides, but there's so much information there. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Maria, for condensing
Thank you very much, Will.
into a digestible amount there for us. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've got a few other things. So Dave, Maria, and Ursula, you're very welcome to go and enjoy your days and sort of get on with things if you like. I know you've got only a little break before your next one. So thank you all three again. Have a lovely final session tonight as well.
You too.
Thank you very much.
See you, Will. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you later.
Bye.
Thanks. Okay, and so everyone attending, I have got something else to share with you. Where is it? Where is it gone? For some reason, it's vanished. Wait a second. So sorry, it's actually very awkward. On a single screen, there we go. Well, I hope you can see that. There we go. Okay, so I've just got, I think, 2 more things to tell you about. Firstly, we've got 2 more events coming up that you might be interested in. I don't know what context you're in. A lot of you are going to be maybe just teaching teenagers. I think that's probably largely the case. But in case you're not, we're actually looking at the stage just beyond that. So we're looking on the 1st of December, we have an event called Educating Adults Day. So 10 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 10:30, just like today. We've got 3 talks. The first one is looking at academia. So the transition from a teenager, learning English as a teenager, and that language that you would learn as a teenager, more general English, and then moving into an academic English environment when you're learning English at university or at that age. So that's Dorothy Zemak talking about that sort of integrated skills that you might learn at university as well. And then Bahar Gun is talking about CPD at school, and how if you're working in a group of teachers, you can sort of use each other to develop yourselves as teachers and really come up with your own path that sort of cross each other's over. It's a really interesting talk that I strongly recommend that you're seeing if you've got the time. And then we've got Kate Protsenko, who's been with us for years. We love working with her, and she's got a really interesting talk about the skills that we feel students are not going to just need for a few years, but going to need in 10, 20 years, which I think you all agree is getting harder and harder to predict. But she's narrowed it down to a few skills which she feels are long-term skills that they need to develop in order to function well as an adult in their life. So that's an event coming on the 1st of December. And then we've got another one on the 12th of December. The Macmillan Education Winter Fair is back. I'm sure you'll be very pleased about that. I certainly am. We've got 3 absolute masters coming to that. So we've got David Crystal. You might know him. He wrote the Encyclopedia of the English Language, for example. And he's just a treasured member of the LT community. I hope you'll agree. And his son, Ben Crystal. They're doing a talk together. Ben's done loads of different talks for us. He specialises in drama and specifically in Shakespeare and acting Shakespeare. He's got a production company in London. And he does loads of different work with us. And we're so pleased to have him with his dad looking at how English language has been sort of changed and formed by literature over the years. So it's going to be a really interesting session from those 2. And then we've got Chir Suan Chong coming to do a talk on teaching rhetoric. So rhetoric being something that was taught right at the beginning of education, not right at the beginning, but very early stages of education by Socrates, I believe, who was teaching how to orate, how to speak to people. And she wants to bring that back into the modern day classroom. So it's sort of looking at sort of English through the ages and education and teaching through the ages. That you're very welcome to register for that now if you'd like to come. It's sort of a bit of a fun way to close the year. I hope you're excited about that too. Finally, a certificate of attendance and a goodie bag is coming within a week. It'll have your name on it if you're on Zoom, but if you're on Facebook, there'll be a link. Should be coming into the comments field now if you're on LinkedIn or Facebook. So you can click on that and then go and get your certificate as well if you want to. And there'll be a goodie bag for those who are attending on Zoom too. I think that's about it. So big thank you. Big purple slide, thank you. Close the slides. You've been awesome. What an amazing chatty chat box we've had today. It's been really cool. Thanks a lot. I'm going to stop talking. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone. See you soon. Bye.